Welcome to yet another amazing episode of Pure Minds, Pure Energy, Enlightenment Sessions with Nate and PMC. I'm your host, Nate Zeleznick, founder of the Integrated Ascension Method and one of the only American master trainers of the ancient Indonesian royal system of breathwork, meditation, healing, energy building, and extrasensory perception art of Merpati Putih. Today, I am deeply honored to introduce an extraordinary woman whose journey from adversity to empowerment has inspired countless lives. Shakti Jennelle Gordon. A survivor of human trafficking, Jennelle defied unimaginable odds to reclaim her life and transform her pain into purpose. As the founder of Shakti Living, Jennelle leads an international coaching business renowned for luxury retreats and Tantra intimacy programs that help individuals and couples heal from trauma, break free from their sexual shame, and foster profound connections. Her compassionate work has touched the lives of athletes, celebrities, and everyday people alike. Jennelle's impact extends far beyond coaching. She's the founder of Beyond Freedom International, a nonprofit dedicated to educating communities and empowering trauma survivors. She's also a TEDx speaker, a TV personality featured on Bravo and CBS, a United States Army veteran, and a loving mother. Prepare to be inspired by Jennelle's wisdom, her resilience, and her unwavering dedication to helping others reclaim their power and step into their fullest selves. Jennelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be with you here today. I just love everything about our conversations and our energy exchange. So I'm thrilled to be here.
And I'm thrilled to have you. And the millions of people who are watching this are just going to be blown away with what your magic brings of what you are and who you help. So please, right off the bat, tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, your mission, your vision, your purpose.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having this platform. I'm so just encouraged to see healers and thought provokers and leaders around the world who are wanting to see change in people's lives and are using their talents and their platforms to do so. I think this is something to celebrate. So I'm very happy that you have this platform and just honored to be here. I think today in this world, it's a world of interconnection because we have so many ways to connect today, right? We have our phones and we have Zooms and we have televisions and YouTubes and all these things, social media. But I think oftentimes we feel disconnected, even though we have a myriad of ways to connect. And if you think about, I don't know your age exactly, but I assume you're maybe a little younger than me, or maybe in our age bracket, I'm not sure, but we didn't used to have all these methods and modalities of how to reach out and connect to people. We had one way, and that was, pick up the phone and call. And if someone didn't answer, you had to leave a voice. You had to leave something on the answering machine, right? To wait and hope they might be home and play that, and then they might get back to you. And that's how, and then we had the pagers for a hot minute, all that. But it seems to me that in a world where we have so much connection today, it seems like we're more disconnected than ever before. And that is exactly where my work comes in. As an intimacy Tantra master, I work to bridge those gaps where intimacy is not there. And by intimacy, I don't mean sex, because a lot of people think that intimacy means sex, but it really doesn't. It means closeness, proximity. It means to be in close connection with someone. And so we know for a fact as human beings that we can go for a short time without food or water, but we also know through some studies that are kind of sad, but also very revealing, that humans cannot live without human touch and intimacy, connection. And so that's where my work comes in. I love to help people connect. And that connection actually starts within themselves. So if you feel like you're having a hard time connecting with your spouse or your children or your employees or your friends, you have to ask yourself, what is the connection like with me? The question we asked at my training always was, who am I? And so, like, how am I connecting with me, with Shakti, the inner divine in me? And so literally that's the work I do. Yes, it's all these other things too. It's the helping couples heal, it's helping women, heal their most intimate places and spaces in their sexual life, as well as men. But it's really helping people reconnect with themselves. And I think that is something that every person on the planet can benefit from.
I love that answer. And, going back to what you were just saying, as far as human connection being absolutely vital for life, maybe you've heard
Yes.
of this, but the people out there, maybe you haven't. But a study was done in World War II with these babies who were orphaned
Yep.
during,
That's the ones I'm referring to. Yeah.
it's called failure to thrive. And these
Yeah.
babies, without having human touch, would die. They
Yeah.
were given the right food, they were given
Food and
enough water, they were given milk, but they didn't have human connection, and it was
they
fatal.
died.
And that's
Yep.
why,
Exactly.
when people in prison, if they're put into solitary confinement for too long, almost always they go insane. If they're not already by the time they go
If
into
they're
the
already not,
liver or
yeah,
anything.
exactly.
But, that's interesting thing that you were just talking about as far as intimacy. And, we're becoming much more open about sex, but in India with the Kama Sutra, that's been a much more wide and open topic. Same with ancient, Japan with the samurais.
Yep.
There's a lot of depictions of that. And then you go to, certain parts of Europe and it's just no big deal because we all have the same parts and it's not a thing. But then you
Yes.
have the puritanical societies, the ones say like America, where it's so taboo, and we can have TV shows where it shows people being beheaded or shot in the face, things like that. That's totally fine. But you
Yeah.
show one nipple. Oh,
Yeah.
it's terrible. But the thing
It's
is
crazy.
we all got here through the same
Through
method.
the same portal, through the same channel.
There's nobody, not a single person walking the planet did not get here through that same method, right? And yet it's
Yes.
so frowned upon. So, your story is absolutely incredible, Jennelle. Your journey from surviving human trafficking to becoming such a well-respected healer and a coach is absolutely remarkable. So, can you just share with the audience a little bit what gave you the strength to rise above all that adversity and start Shakti living?
I mean, I think for all like entrepreneurs and or people who've had some unthinkables, some, very intense. I like to just call them, Tony Robbins uses that word. I just like to say intense because I feel like the word trauma is so overused. And I actually think I probably have the ability to use that word trauma, but I don't like to use it so much because I want people to know that I'm also triumphant, that I'm not a slave to my past, and that I am not just a survivor, that I'm a thriver. And I think these are the narratives of the work that I've done on myself, where I try not to look at myself in those ways. And I try to focus now mostly on the healing work that I do. But I do understand that people are curious, like, how do you go from such extremes? So I'm also happy to, speak on it a little bit to help people understand, like, how did that happen or what happened? Um, I think all of us are born with a purpose. And we all have a calling in this life that God or the divine has bestowed upon us, or that we chose, if you will, when we came into this life. And for me, wow, that just took me a moment. For me, like, sometimes it's, and I'm also just transitioning out of my moon cycle, so I'm very still. My hormones are still like, woo. Sometimes it's very um like, why did I have to go through all this? Those moments that I have, those, right? Where I'm just like, gosh, what, I see the life my son has, and it's not perfect, but it's so beautiful and so blessed. And so, like, he's known in every country, continent, people love him. And he's had some of the most amazing experiences a child could have. And I'm like, that's so crazy that he had that experience and I had this total opposite, like,
Right.
and so I have those moments where I'm like, why me? And to say that I don't would be a disservice to the audience and people who maybe respect me or curious, because I'm human too.
Sure.
And I think that that's something that people kind of always think like, oh, you're healed, it's over, it's better. And no, healing is an ongoing journey. It's not a project to be completed at a specific timeline or date. It's a process. And for me, healing looks like asking those questions, but rather than staying in those place of answering those questions, I reflect upon those questions and then I ask a different one. So I
Mhm.
might ask, wow, how interesting is it that I had such an intense childhood? So maybe the fact that I could just have one child not have that kind of childhood, like my son, maybe that's why. Or the countless men and women who either have come to my retreats or personally worked with me, or even more, the ones that watch my YouTubes or this or that, or see me on these major things and say, I saw you on Bravo TV and I felt like I needed your help because I've never told anyone XYZ. Maybe that's why I went through the extreme challenges that I went through growing up and as a child and as in my early adult years. I think a lot of people don't realize, like, I didn't really get out until I was, close to 30. That's a long time of your life to just not to be entrapped, enslaved, and unhappy and abused. And, you know, I don't know any other way than to say enslaved, not just
Mhm.
by like being trafficked, but also in the life. I couldn't get out of the adult entertain of like being in the exotic dance world. I couldn't get out even when I did leave my trafficker. It was hard because it was secular.
Yeah.
Right? We always repeat our patterns, which is why women go back to abusive husbands. Even if they leave them, they go back to the same. Or even alcoholics, sadly, they get sober, but then they go back. It's because we go back to what we know.
Right.
It's like programmed in our DNA. We're creatures of habit. And that's why either that can be really freaking good because our habits are good and they're leading us towards evolution, change, service, growing, all these things, or they're destructive and they're leading us back in prison, back into slavery, back into addiction, back into trauma. And so for me, just thinking about this whole time, a long time of my life was very freaking unhappy, right? And very much so in pain and trauma. And that's why my book is called Uneff Your Sex Life, because it's like I'm uneffing myself right now. And that's what I do in the work with my clients. So your initial question, like, how did I find the strength to, kind of come out of this, was I just had this moment. It was in my TEDx talk where I said, like, this girl who strangely lived in Newport that I was dancing with in Vegas, we were at this club and it was like literally just such a simple, profound question. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't like she studied NLP books all day. She just asked me the question, don't you want to be happy? And I don't think anyone had ever asked me that question before. I don't think anyone was really ever concerned about my happiness. I was just a number. I was just a kid in the foster system that wasn't supposed to make it, right?
Mm.
A product of rape. That's how I came into the world. Like, I'm nothing, literally. The world doesn't care if I exist. And for someone to say, like, don't you want to be happy in a world that was very transactional in Vegas? It was just the moment of clarity that I needed to say, I actually do want to freaking be happy. And I don't even think I've ever been
Cool.
happy. There's been so much pain and trauma and religious dogma and bullshit my entire life. I want to be fucking happy. How do I do this?
Yes.
And I knew, what I was doing now wasn't that, right?